What would you do if the one person you were never supposed to want looked at you like that? The question slithered through my mind. Relentless, intoxicating, wrong. But God, I couldn't stop thinking about it. It started with a glance, not the kind you give your stepson when he walks into the kitchen, sleepy-eyed and tousle-haired after a late night. Not the kind you offer when he laughs at your jokes a little too hard, his gaze lingering just a second longer than it should. No, this was different. This was hungry, and I should have looked away, but I didn't. The night it happened, the house was too quiet. My husband David was away on another business trip, his third this month. The excuses were getting flimsier, the absences longer. I stopped asking questions. The silence between us had become its own answer. That left me and him, Ryan, my stepson. 25, all lean muscle and restless energy, with a smile that could melt ice and eyes that burned with something I refused to name. He'd been living with us since he was 19, after his mother, David's first wife, passed away. Cancer, quick and cruel. I tried to be what he needed, a steady presence, a friend, a mother figure. But that night, everything changed. I was in the living room, curled up on the couch with a glass of wine, pretending to watch some forgettable rom-com. The flickering light of the TV painted shadows across the walls, and the air smelled like vanilla from the candle I'd lit. Something sweet to distract me from the loneliness. Then I heard his footsteps. Low, deliberate. Ryan appeared in the doorway, shirtless, sweat glistening on his chest from the workout he'd just finished. His sweatpants hung low on his hips, and my throat went dry. Don't look. Don't you dare look. But I did. He ran a hand through his dark hair, his biceps flexing with the movement, and smirked. You're up late. Couldn't sleep, I murmured, forcing my eyes back to the TV. He didn't leave. Instead, he walked closer, the heat of his body radiating as he sank onto the couch beside me. Too close. Far too close. I could smell him. Clean sweat, the faintest hint of his cologne, something raw and male. My pulse kicked up, traitorous. You okay? He asked, voice low. Fine. I took a sip of wine, desperate for something to do with my hands. A beat of silence. I need to tell you something. The way he said it made my stomach flip. Serious. Nervous. I turned to him, and that's when I saw it. The way his eyes dropped to my lips. The way his breath hitched. The way his fingers twitched like he wanted to reach for me. God, what is it? I whispered. He swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing. I've never been with anyone. The confession hung between us, heavy, suffocating. I blinked. What? I'm 25, he muttered, running a hand over his face. And I've never, virgin. My stepson was a virgin. And the way he was looking at me, like I was the answer to some desperate, aching need, sent a thrill down my spine that I hated myself for feeling. Ryan, I started, but he cut me off. I don't want some random girl, he said, voice rough. I want it to mean something. My heart hammered. You'll find someone. I already have. The air left my lungs. His hand found mine, his fingers threading through mine, calloused and warm. You have no idea how long I've wanted this. Every rational thought screamed at me to pull away, to laugh it off, to remind myself that this was wrong. But then his thumb brushed over my knuckles, slow, sensual, and something inside me cracked. I should have said no. I should have run. But when his lips finally met mine, hot, demanding, perfect, I didn't stop him. And that was the moment I ruined everything. The kiss deepened, his hands sliding into my hair, pulling me closer like he'd die if he didn't. I melted into him, my body betraying me with every shuddering breath. His touch was fire, his mouth sinful, and when he whispered, "Please," against my lips, I was lost. I said yes. And oh God, it was electric. His hands, unsure at first, grew bolder. My skin burned where he touched me, every brush of his fingers sending sparks through my veins. He was eager, desperate, beautiful in his need, and when he finally... I can't. Not yet. Because this is where the story really begins. This is where I tell you how one reckless, intoxicating night destroyed my marriage, my family, my life, and I'll warn you now, you won't see the ending coming. My name is Elizabeth Harper, and by the time I turned 45, I had already given up on the idea of happiness. Not that anyone would have guessed. On the surface, my life was enviable. A spacious suburban home, a successful husband, a polished smile I wore like armor. but beneath the carefully curated image, I was drowning. I wasn't always like this. Once, I was the girl who dreamed in bold strokes. I studied art history in college, fantasized about working in galleries, traveling the world. Then reality hit. Student loans, a recession, and the slow, suffocating pressure to settle. That's when I met David. The marriage wasn't love, just convenience. David Harper was handsome in a corporate sort of way, clean-cut, sharp-eyed, with a smile that promised stability. He was 12 years older, divorced, and carried the quiet grief of a man who'd buried his first wife too soon. I didn't love him, but I liked him, and at 33, with my dreams gathering dust, liking felt like enough. We married after 18 months. A sensible decision, my mother said. He'll take care of you. And he did. Just not in the ways that mattered. The step that never quite fit. When I married David, I inherited a shadow, Ryan, his then 19-year-old son. Ryan was a storm cloud in human form, brooding, closed off, still raw from losing his mother. He barely spoke to me those first months, just glared from under his messy dark hair like I was an intruder. I tried. God, I tried. I made his favorite meals, spaghetti, extra garlic. I attended his soccer games. He never looked for me in the stands. I even framed a photo of his mom and left it on his dresser. He threw it in a drawer. Then one night, I heard crying through his bedroom door. I didn't knock, didn't speak. I just sat outside, my back against the wall, and stayed there until the sobs stopped. The next morning, he made me coffee for the first time. It was burnt. I drank every drop. Years passed. Ryan grew into a man, broad-shouldered, sharp-witted, with his father's smile but none of his restraint. He left for college, came back, floated through part-time jobs. David pretended not to notice his son's lack of direction, just like he pretended not to notice me. Our marriage wasn't cruel. It was empty. We stopped touching, stopped talking, slept back to back like strangers sharing a bed. I told myself it was normal. That passion faded for everyone. Then I caught him texting her. Can't stop thinking about last night. He claimed it was a colleague, a mistake. I didn't believe him, but what could I do? Leave? Start over at 45 with nothing? So I stayed. The night everything changed. The first time I really saw Ryan, not as my stepson, but as a man, was 3 months before the kiss. He'd come home late, smelling like beer and summer heat, his t-shirt clinging to his chest. I was at the sink, rinsing a wine glass, when he stepped behind me to grab a water. His chest brushed my back. I froze. So did he. For one impossible second, the air between us crackled. Then he muttered, "Sorry," and left. But his gaze lingered, and for the first time in years, I felt seen. The confession that broke me: I've never been with anyone. When Ryan admitted he was a virgin, I should have laughed, brushed it off, teased him, played the mom card. But the way he looked at me, like I held the answer to some desperate prayer, undid me. Because no one had looked at me like that in years. Not David, not anyone. And when his fingers traced my wrist, asking without words, I made the choice that would ruin us both. I let him. Why? You understand her, even if you hate yourself for it. You're judging me now. I hear it in the silence. How could she? What kind of woman does that? But here's the truth. I just wanted Ryan. I wanted to feel wanted, to be more than a placeholder in my own life. And when he kissed me, for the first time in a decade, I felt alive. The night the world stopped. It was the kind of humid summer evening that made clothes feel like a punishment. David had left for another business trip, the same one he took every month, always returning with a faint perfume on his collar that wasn't mine. The house was too quiet, too empty, just me, a half-empty bottle of Merlot, and the restless energy of a man who wasn't my husband. Ryan had been different all week, more intense, more present. Lingering in doorways, brushing against me in the hallway, his gaze lingering just a second too long on my bare legs when I stretched out on the couch. I told myself I didn't notice. Delighted, we were playing cards at the kitchen table, some stupid drinking game he'd learned in college. Strip poker would be more fun, he joked, smirking as he took a sip of beer. I rolled my eyes. You wish. But my pulse spiked because he wasn't really joking. I saw it in the way his fingers tapped the table, restless, in the way his eyes darkened when I licked wine from my lips. And then he cheated. Deliberately. Bo, I laughed, calling him out. You sure? His voice dropped, rough at the edges. Maybe you just don't like losing. I reached for his cards. He gently caught my wrist. His grip wasn't tight, but it wasn't loose either. And his thumb, God, his thumb stroked the delicate skin beneath my palm in slow, deliberate circles. The air between us thickened. Neither of us moved. Then, voice barely above a whisper, "Tell me to stop." I didn't. His lips were on mine before I could think. Desperate, hungry. The kiss wasn't gentle, it was a claim, all teeth and tongue and pent-up need. His hands tangled in my hair and a moan tore from my throat, a sound of pleasure I should have pushed him away. Instead, I clung to him. His body was hard against mine, all lean muscle and burning skin. He smelled like sweat and cheap beer and something darker, male, that made my stomach clench. And when his fingers slid under my shirt, rough, impatient, I let him. I want you, the confession that broke me. I've never been with anyone. When Ryan admitted he was a virgin, I should have laughed, brushed it off, teased him, played the mom card. But the way he looked at me, like I held the answer to some desperate prayer, undid me, because no one had looked at me like that in years. Not David, not anyone. And when his fingers traced my wrist, asking without words, I made the choice that would ruin us both. I let him. Why? You understand her, even if you hate yourself for it. You're judging me now. I hear it in the silence. How could she? What kind of woman does that? But here's the truth. I just wanted Ryan. I wanted to feel wanted, to be more than a placeholder in my own life. And when he kissed me, for the first time in a decade, I felt alive. The night the world stopped. It was the kind of humid summer evening that made clothes feel like a punishment. David had left for another business trip, the same one he took every month, always returning with a faint perfume on his collar that wasn't mine. The house was too quiet, too empty. Just me, a half-empty bottle of Merlot, and the restless energy of a man who wasn't my husband. Ryan had been different all week, more intense, more present. Lingering in doorways, brushing against me in the hallway, his gaze lingering just a second too long on my bare legs when I stretched out on the couch. I told myself I didn't notice. Delighted, we were playing cards at the kitchen table, some stupid drinking game he'd learned in college. Strip poker would be more fun, he joked, smirking as he took a sip of beer. I rolled my eyes. You wish. But my pulse spiked because he wasn't really joking. I saw it in the way his fingers tapped the table, restless, in the way his eyes darkened when I licked wine from my lips. And then he cheated. Deliberately. I laughed, calling him out. You sure? His voice dropped, rough at the edges. Maybe you just don't like losing. I reached for his cards. He gently caught my wrist. His grip wasn't tight, but it wasn't loose either. And his thumb, God, his thumb, stroked the delicate skin beneath my palm in slow, deliberate circles. The air between us thickened. Neither of us moved. Then, voice barely above a whisper, "Tell me to stop." I didn't. His lips were on mine before I could think. Desperate, hungry. The kiss wasn't gentle, it was a claim, all teeth and tongue and pent-up need. His hands tangled in my hair and a moan tore from my throat, a sound of pleasure I should have pushed him away. Instead, I clung to him. His body was hard against mine, all lean muscle and burning skin. He smelled like sweat and cheap beer and something darker, male, that made my stomach clench. And when his fingers slid under my shirt, rough, impatient, I let him. I want you. New content for part 3 adjusted. He growled against my mouth. You have no idea how long I've wanted this. I did, because I'd wanted it too. The kitchen counter dug into my back as he lifted me onto it, knocking over the wine glass. It shattered on the floor. Neither of us cared. His mouth trailed down my neck, teeth scraping my pulse point, and my head fell back with a gasp. His hands. God, his hands were everywhere, mapping my body like he'd memorized it in his dreams. I've thought about this, he admitted, voice raw, every night. The confession should have horrified me. The caption, "How long did you think you could hide?" The text came at 2:37 a.m. I was still awake, tangled in the sheets, my body humming from Ryan's touch hours earlier. David snored beside me, oblivious. Then my phone lit up. Unknown number. You have 24 hours to tell him, or I will. Attached was another photo. Ryan pressing me against the hallway wall, my head thrown back, his mouth on my throat. My stomach dropped. Someone knew. And they weren't just watching. they were waiting. I spent the next 6 hours in a haze of panic, running through possibilities. The neighbor, Mrs. Thompson, who always seemed to be peering through her blinds when Ryan's car stayed parked too late. David's assistant, the sharp-eyed woman who'd accidentally sent me those dinner receipts. Or, God help me, David himself setting a trap to see how far I'd fall. Ryan, when I showed him the texts, just smirked. Let them talk. Are you insane? I hissed. This could ruin us. He cupped my face, his thumb tracing my trembling lip. Or it could finally set us free. The next message was worse. Unknown number. Meet me tonight. 9 p.m. Old Boathouse. Come alone or the whole town sees. I stared at the words until they blurred. This wasn't just blackmail. It was a reckoning. I found David in his study, pouring whiskey into a glass too full, his knuckles white around the bottle. We need to talk, I said. He didn't look up. About Ryan? The air left my lungs. He knew. All this time, he knew. I expected rage, a scream. Instead, David just sighed, exhausted. I've been waiting for you to tell me. Tears burned my eyes. How long? Since the first time. He finally met my gaze, his own hollow. The cameras caught you. Cameras. The word hit like a punch. He'd filmed us. David slid his laptop toward me. On screen, Ryan and me in the kitchen, his hands under my shirt. In the living room, my lips on his neck. In our bed. You set this up, I whispered. I needed proof. His voice was eerily calm. For the divorce. A cold realization settled over me. He wanted me to cheat so he could walk away clean. Then came the final blow. Ryan's gone, David said. What? Sent him to his grandfather's in Colorado. Permanently. He sipped his whiskey. Unless you want me to press charges. My blood turned to ice. David had planned this, every step, every move, and now he held all the cards. I lunged for the laptop, smashing it to the floor. David didn't flinch. It's backed up, he said simply. I wanted to scream. Instead, I did the only thing I could. Ran. The boathouse was empty. No blackmailer, no confrontation, just my reflection in the dark water. A woman who'd gambled everything and lost. David didn't waste time. The documents arrived 3 days after my failed escape, delivered by a stone-faced lawyer who refused to meet my eyes. The terms were brutal. No alimony, infidelity clause, Section 4B, no claim to the house, marital misconduct, Exhibit D, video files, no contact with Ryan, restraining order pending. I scrawled my name at the bottom, hands shaking, and handed it back without a word. What was there to say? I did this to myself. Scandal travels fast in a small town. By the time I dared to step outside, the stairs followed me like shadows. The grocery store cashier, a woman I'd known for years, pursed her lips and turned away. Neighbors crossed the street to avoid me. Even the barista at the coffee shop, who used to greet me by name, pretended not to recognize me. I was no longer Elizabeth Harper, respected wife, dependable friend. I was that woman, the one who slept with her stepson, the one who destroyed her marriage, the one who let herself be caught. I tried calling Ryan, once, 20 times. His number had been disconnected. David had made sure of that. The last time I'd seen him, he'd been furious, wild-eyed, swearing he'd find a way back to me. But that was before his father threatened him with legal ruin, before he was shipped off to Colorado, before he realized I wasn't worth the cost. I drove to the lake one freezing November night, the same one where David and I had taken Ryan fishing years ago. The water was black, endless. I stood at the edge, toes curling over the dock's splintered wood, and cried, regretting what my desires had led to. Would anyone care? Then my phone buzzed in my pocket, a single message from an unknown number. Don't. I never found out who sent it, but I stopped. In the end, nothing bad happened. I woke up, I moved to a different state, changed my name, took a job at a bookstore where no one knew my past. Some nights, I still dream of Ryan, his hands, his mouth, the way he looked at me like I was the only thing that mattered. But then I remember the truth. I was never his love story. I was just his rebellion. And he was mine. Desire is a fire, warms you, thrills you, and if you're not careful, it's going to ruin your life. A year later, a postcard arrived. No return address, just 3 words in familiar handwriting. Was it worth it? I never answered. But deep down, I already know. Ryan's future life unfolded in a series of jagged, unrelenting consequences that began the moment his father sent him away, stripped of his trust fund, his reputation, and any connection to the woman he swore he couldn't leave without. He arrived in Colorado hollow-eyed and furious, crashing on his grandfather's couch in a cramped mountain town where everyone knew his shame before he even stepped off the bus. The whispers followed him like ghosts. That's the boy who slept with his stepmother, the one who broke his family apart. And though he tried to drown the memories in whiskey and reckless bar fights, the truth clung to him like a second skin, his once charming smile now a sneer, his confidence replaced by a simmering rage that cost him job after job until he was left with nothing but manual labor, roofing under the blistering sun, swinging a hammer until his hands bled, all while his father's lawyers made sure he couldn't contact Elizabeth. Not that it mattered. After the fifth unanswered letter he'd sent to her old address, each one more desperate than the last. I still love you. I didn't mean for this to happen. I'll find a way back to you. But she was already gone, vanished into some new life where he didn't exist, and the realization carved something out of him, something vital, leaving him hollow. Until one night, drunk and trembling in a motel room, he called his father for the first time in years, voice breaking. "Why did you do this to me?" Only for David to reply with icy finality, "You did it to yourself." And that was the moment Ryan truly understood. There was no redemption, no grand reunion, just the slow, suffocating weight of a mistake that would define him forever. So he stopped fighting, stopped dreaming, and let the years grind him down into someone harder, colder, a man who drifted through relationships like a ghost, incapable of trust, of real intimacy, always waiting for the other shoe to drop. Until one autumn evening nearing 33, he found himself standing outside a diner in some nowhere town, watching a woman through the window who looked just enough like Elizabeth to make his chest ache. And for the first time in a decade, he allowed himself to wonder, what if I had walked away? But the thought was too painful, so he lit a cigarette, turned up his collar against the wind, and kept walking, because some roads only led one way, and his had run out a long time ago. The story serves as a harrowing cautionary tale about the destructive power of forbidden desire and the irreversible consequences of selfish choices, illustrating how momentary passion can unravel entire lives when reason is abandoned for lust, revealing that what begins as thrilling transgression often ends in isolation and regret. With Elizabeth's journey demonstrating how emotional neglect in a marriage can create vulnerability to dangerous temptations but never justifies betrayal, while Ryan's fate shows how youthful obsession and inexperience can be manipulated into lifelong damage, the narrative emphasizes that taboo relationships carry hidden costs far beyond physical pleasure, eroded trust, fractured families, and permanent stains on one's identity and social standing. With neither character emerging unscathed, as Elizabeth loses her marriage, home, and dignity, while Ryan loses his future and capacity for healthy relationships, the story underscores how society harshly judges those who violate fundamental moral boundaries, particularly when power dynamics are unequal. The plot reveals how easily desire can mutate into obsession, and how quickly secrets become weapons in the hands of those wronged, with David's cold revenge proving that some betrayals awaken a calculated cruelty even in previously indifferent partners. The tale warns that forbidden romances rarely end in mutual happiness, but rather in asymmetric destruction, where the more vulnerable party, Ryan, suffers disproportionately. The conclusion suggests that some mistakes cannot be undone, no matter how deeply regretted, only endured as permanent lessons. The story ultimately functions as a dark mirror, showing viewers their own potential for moral failure when starved for validation and connection, challenging readers to examine what voids in their own lives might make them susceptible to similar temptations, while affirming that some boundaries exist for profound societal and psychological reasons. The narrative structure itself serves as moral instruction by ensuring neither protagonist finds redemption or reunion, but only the hollow aftermath of their choices. The lack of a happy ending reinforces that certain lines, once crossed, cannot be uncrossed. The final postcard's haunting question, was it worth it?, hanging over the entire story as the essential query every potential transgressor should confront before acting. The tale's power lies in its refusal to sanitize consequences or offer easy forgiveness, instead presenting lust's aftermath with brutal honesty as a warning that some fires should never be lit because they cannot be controlled, only survived.